Welcome to the Inspired Caring Podcast, where women who are in the messy middle of this big, beautiful, and sometimes chaotic life are finding inspiration and resources to care for themselves and figure out the best options to care for their aging loved ones. How we take care of ourselves today impacts how we are aging tomorrow. This podcast will help you feel seen, centered, and aligned. Everyone that relies on you is so lucky to have you in their life. The Inspired Caring Podcast is your reminder that the number one person that counts on you is yourself. Congratulations on being here in this moment. Let's dive in and be inspired. Okay, so we are talking about denial and procrastination with my mother, Deborah Ferris. Hi, Mom.
Hi, just waiting on the big 8-0.
Yay!
Trying not to be in denial and to not procrastinate,
I love it.
which really rang a bell with me after a conversation with some friends last night.
Let's talk about that. Will you kind of
Well,
recap? Don't name names.
yeah.
Protect the
Well,
innocent.
my friends are in their 60s. I think they're pretty realistic people. But they have friends that they've had that they used to work with or somehow had connections with. And one of them has a mother who's turning 90. And these women, though there's one woman that is 97 that they just helped move into some kind of a residence. And she was sleeping, she was moved from her home where she had a hospital bed in her dining room, and she was an invalid. And so she had care coming in to take care of her, and that she ran out of money, that she needs to sell her house to get money,
And she's in Canada.
Yes, this is all in Canada, where there is a very high level of support through their universal health care.
So
and every
province
is every province is a little bit different, just like every state is a little bit different. But yeah, she had a lot of help coming in. But she honestly, what was the obsession was staying in her own home. And her husband and her daughter died the same year. And that was when she was like 90.
My goodness.
So, you think you're covered because you have a child in their 60s. You're not covered,
Yeah.
You're not covered.
I mean, she did her best to stay home for as long as possible, and she did just move.
But it was only because her much younger friend, a friend in her 60s, said, you have to move, and we have to sell this house in order to generate the income for you that you're going to need, to live out your life. So she just moved, and at 97, and there is some, there are issues with, she does have some issues with memory, dementia. And I mean, sometimes she'll accuse the staff of doing things with her husband, who is long dead. I know you're up there with him, and this kind of thing, and but she can't help herself, and has been unwilling to move, and has been getting worse and worse with her staff, the staff that's come in, that's, paid through the plans. But and my thing, it's like I have another friend whose mother, my friend and her husband moved in with the mother for a couple of years, and they were saying to the siblings, she needs to be in a home. And she's diagnosed with dementia. Her siblings are saying she's not that bad. But the point is not how bad the person is. It happens to be, if they move in soon enough in the process, then that gets to be home. And, then they are with people, which, because someone was saying, I can't even remember what conversation this was, but that somebody had moved in and it seemed like they had a sharp decline. And I was saying, I believe that sharp decline was caused by being there, by being out of their environment where they know everything about the place, you know, by just their muscle memory, and you
Right.
move them into a new place. And so that's why it's important, in my view of the world, to get to the place where you can have your things around you and get to know it at a point in your memory development where you can remember, you
Right.
know?
Things start to feel familiar again.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, and I've talked a little bit about this too, is that when I was learning French and living in France, the idea was to speak French with as many different people as you could. Because if you're always speaking to the same person, you're going to have a very limited vocabulary.
Oh,
You use the same words. Just think about yourself with your kids, with your husband, and with maybe a good friend. You use the same vocabulary. And so then if you go into a place where you need a different vocabulary, you don't necessarily have it. And I think
um,
that happened. Yeah.
that's so powerful because I'm thinking about how many people are um, just killing themselves to caregive in the home. And I do want people to stay home for as long as possible. There are these tipping points where it's just clearly not in anyone's best interest, and it's just simply not working. But with that limited vocabulary, if you're finding that you are completely burning out and taking care of somebody, like bringing outside help in gives a broader vocabulary. It gives
Oh,
people to,
yes.
oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea here is what we talk a lot about, senior moments. People get very concerned when they can't remember the name of something. We work around it. But the point is this, is like the neural pathways that we've talked a lot about.
Hmm.
And this is just me based on our conversations and what limited reading I have done, is that basically if you keep looking those words up, you keep finding those words, you keep doing that, you don't rely on your shorthand, you know
Right.
with the people who know you, so they're there already with your morning coffee. You don't even have to say what it I I want that stuff, that stuff that's brown
Right.
that I drink in the morning. And no, it's already there if you're in the same environment, you know. But
Yeah.
I mean, and my thing is that basically at a certain point, just exposure to different people, yes, but also that's what you get when you move into some kind of a residential place. You're meeting other people. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's always uncomfortable when you're moving into a new environment. But you're gonna be challenging different parts of you know, your brain to, when you're in conversations, you're sitting at a table, you're having conversations with people. It's not going to be the same conversation that you have every day with the three people who are coming into your home, or your child, your adult child.
And all of that is a good thing because it helps to keep your brain active.
Active. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
we have a family that just moved in on our street, and they have a daughter who's going to be a junior at the high school, and they're a military family. Thank you for your service. And so this, yeah, so I'm just trying to take age out of the equation. Here she is, 16, 17 years old. She's going to be a junior at the high school. And I said, "Oh, you're starting at South this fall, and she like groaned and put her head on her mother's shoulder.
Uh,
And I said, it's going to be great. It's a great school. But here she is at 17. So whether you're 70 or 97 or 17,
yeah,
we're just kind of resistant to the
to
change.
to a
And
to a change. Yeah,
yeah,
and it's yeah. I mean, it's like that. It is somewhat human nature, except those Rolling Stones that have a packed suitcase all the time, you know.
right.
But yeah, I mean, it's just there's I don't know. I think it's important, but again, back to the denial, you know. Um, that and we were just speaking about, you know, this thing about, well, if I stay home, I'll just die in my bed, you know, and nothing bad is going to happen, you know,
Right.
and I'll just keep eating my peanut butter and crackers and it'll be fine. It's going to be fine,
Well,
you know.
the two things that really stood out is you said to me, which is what made me hit record on this walk and talk conversation, is I don't know what's wrong with these people who aren't who aren't planning for their future.
Planning.
And you said that people tend to jump the conversation to death, like, well, when I'm dead. And you were like,
Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of stuff that's about to
Last
happen.
night they were completely talking about, I mean, we're burying my husband at the end of next month, but everybody's like, yes, my plan is to, you know, pick out my my earn and, you know, pay for everything ahead of time. And I'm like, I'm thinking, how do you even know where you're going to be?
Yeah.
You know, how does, I mean, I understand how it works if you have a terminal illness. Yes. Yeah, that's a good thing to do. But, and because it just relieves everybody of the burden. But the point is, if you've got age going on, you got a lot more between here and there, I bet, you know.
Like moves, because you are looking at a big move out of
Yes,
the
I'm
city
look,
that you're. And so what's, yeah, tell us more about that.
well, yeah, and I mean, and it's hard for me. I mean, I do know that in the past I have also been, you know, it took me a long time when I was thinking about moving to Paris. That was quite an organizational feat as well, you know. Um, but here it is, you know, like, well, I need to get this one last medical thing taken care of. And I mean, you know, do I do an, and I have things that are related to my husband's death that still need to be taken care of. And there's a company involved in this, and you know, where if I'm a non-resident, then there's issues. And so I feel like there's things that I can't move too soon either, you know, because you know, I was planning to move immediately and then seeing all the stuff that has to happen. And so I'm feeling like I'm trying to make decisions based on, you know, what makes sense in terms of, I don't want to have to be flying up here to deal with issues all the
Right.
time.
But as you're about to turn 80, you're looking ahead and you're like, I know
Oh
I
yeah,
have at least one move,
yeah.
probably
I mean,
two,
at least two moves. I know I
a-
have at least two
at
moves.
least two
Uh,
moves.
yeah. So I mean, because so then I'm thinking, and people are agreeing with me. Everyone's saying, yeah, Toronto sounds like it makes sense because you'll be at an airport where you don't have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to make the connecting flight to
Right.
get anywhere. You can just get up and get on the 10 o'clock flight and go, you know. So people are saying, yes, and it makes a lot of sense. I'll be in a walking area, all this kind of stuff makes sense. So it does make sense. It's a matter of, and then me trying to get rid of as much stuff as possible. and making some judgments about, I don't know that this is the conversation we need to podcast, but but basically making decisions about whether it makes sense to move furniture or buy new furniture because of the cost of moving.
I think this is part of this
Oh,
denial
okay.
and preparation conversation,
Yeah,
because these are the elements that keep people stuck.
yeah,
They're like, well, I'm just not going to deal with it. I don't, or I
yes,
want to
yeah,
be connected and clutching all my things.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
that was the other story I was telling you about,
yes.
was the couple that when they were in their 80s, actually fell in love with a condo. Um, and do recommend, apartment condo living, because you don't, you can use the stairs if you want. It's
Right.
good exercise, but you don't have to, you
Right.
know. But anyway, they were convinced that they had found a place that they really wanted to move. But when they got back home, the husband was looking at all of his 18 different hammers and 10 different screwdrivers, and he said, no, I'm not moving, not moving.
Because literally he walked back through the garage into the house and was like, I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing this. It's too much. I can't even contemplate it, you know, and it's just, and being here, you helped me move into this apartment and we got rid of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You were like a superstar. I've never seen anyone work that fast and decisively on yes, no, maybe. Like you were just give it to
Well,
so and so, get that goes to
yeah,
so and so.
yeah. And a lot of the maybe stuff is gone now.
Yeah, interesting.
So luckily, I have a close friend who helps me. She cleans and she takes everything for her community.
That's great.
And she sends stuff home so that because it's in the Philippines, and but the winter clothes and things like that, if I give it to her, she's like, it's going to a good home, and she has people who need the things that I don't
Right.
can't use anymore. So every week there's a pile of things to go, but the other thing is, and this is one of the things that was helped me focus, was going to that talk on downsizing and in preparation for a move. And one of the things that the speaker said is, start with the paper.
Mm.
It's so easy to have boxes of paper hidden away. And so I came home from that talk
Hmm.
and fished through stuff, and I'm still not 100%, but I'm like, I would go 80%, maybe even a little higher, just doing that and going through the paper, figuring out what had information in it that needed to be shredded. So there are services out there. And so like we have, for the business, you've been to Diamond Storage, which is a locally built company. They don't just do storage, they have mailboxes, and they have a shredding capacity where they keep the materials to be shredded under lock and key. It's very well protected. And then they give you a certificate of what's been shredded. They have storage rooms. I have a safe deposit box because it's very hard to get them at the banks now. They have safe deposit boxes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, anything that I don't want to get lost, I put in that safe deposit box.
So don't think that a company is just doing one thing. Check out and see what other
Right,
services they might
exactly.
provide.
Do- Don't, as well, you get those self-storage spaces, chances are they won't. But this company, and I don't know what the equivalent is in other locations,
Hmm.
but in Ontario, um, this place is called Diamond Storage, and they have all kinds of, like everything you need for storage in the home and storage with them, all kinds of things. Anyway, yeah, just when you're looking for resources, uh, for a while, I only had the post office box, but they're hard to get. They're hard to get at
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, um, and you're at the mercy of the postal service,
And their
but
hours and
and
stuff.
their hours and
Yeah.
stuff. But even people like UPS, they have post boxes as well. So, just when think about that kind of thing too, if you want a consistent address. Now, some things you actually have to have a physical address for, but if you just want an address, you can get a postal box, so that you don't have to be changing your. I mean, I check my mail here maybe once a week
Right.
because I just don't get that much mail here.
You know what I'd
Now
love
I
to
get,
circle back to?
yes.
I would love to
No, I
circle
don't.
back.
No, I don't. What would you
Um,
like to say?
I would like to circle back to your ability to like get rid of the furniture because I think sometimes people get very attached
Oh,
to where things
yeah.
should go and
Okay, I want to bring up a little story. This same woman that just moved in, that my friends just moved into assisted living at 97. She has a lot of antiques. She has a clock that she brought from England with her when she came to Canada.
wow.
Yeah. And the problem is grandfather clocks no longer have the panache that they used to have. And so, but the neighbor said, so are you going to, so first you're going to sell, they said, so are you going to have a sale? And my friend, who has been through this process a number of times just in life, said, there is no sale. If you want to have she said, you can come take pictures to the neighbor. You can come take pictures and sell this stuff. It doesn't sell, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of stuff, we have disposable furniture, just like we have disposable clothing.
Mm.
We have ready-made dishes, so you don't have to buy the potatoes separately. We are we are in a disposable era.
Mm.
You cannot sell this stuff unless it's a very particular piece. So, she will have somebody come in and look at this woman's antique furniture. But my friend looked at the neighbor and said, it's not worth it. I'm going to give this furniture away to this organization that helps immigrants get settled in Canada.
Amazing.
It's But anyway, so when I look at furniture, I brought pieces down here, as you know, that weren't even that usable. The drawers were too small, the shelving was too small, all this kind of thing. And I had maybe 5 things in that whole dresser.
Hmm.
And at a certain point, when we had the flood,
Mm. Mm.
and we had to move everything out of there, I'm just like, I can compact, I can give away some of the stuff in here, I can consolidate. I have an empty drawer in this other one. I don't have to have this piece of furniture. And it's a beautiful piece of furniture. I have a lot of memories about it and about buying it and moving it up here and the places it's lived in my homes. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's too big. You can't put it on a bracelet, you know? You know what I'm saying?
That should be everyone's new bar that they're setting. Can I put it on a locket? In a
Yeah.
locket,
Can I put it on a
charm
little charm
bracelet.
bracelet?
Yeah.
You know, because too many times I feel like our furniture takes on that quality, you know, the
Mm.
pictures on the wall, they take on that quality of this is my memory, you know, this is, you know, and so yes, and I actually bought two pieces of furniture to come in here because it's a small apartment. It's not it's not the big condo that I was in before, where you could put a piece of furniture in a room and walk away from it, you know.
Yeah.
But I can't do right. And I know the next place is going to be even smaller than this. I have two bathrooms here.
Right.
I don't,
So
I mean,
why do you think that you don't have that
no,
denial that so many
I
people
have the
do?
attachment. No, I have
Mm.
the denial about what it's worth,
I don't
having
know,
tried.
like just the
Oh, yeah.
denial about the whole thing. Like people's parents are just
Oh,
like struggle busing and they're trying to convince their
yeah.
parents and their parents are resisting and it's this whole like thing. But you don't
When,
have that.
yeah, our doctor, when we were talking about, we were selling the condo and moving into a smaller place, and he said, I'm moving into an apartment. And he said, it's going to be much smaller. And I'm like, I looked at him, I lived in a tent when I was growing up, literally lived in a tent. We had no running water. The toilet was not close by. The outhouse was, you had to walk across through this forest to get to the outhouse, you know?
Right.
I mean, in the dark. There was no refrigerator, and when I think back, and I told you girls many times, and we had the cute t-shirt, my idea of camping is room service, is
No,
late.
yeah, right.
Well, that is me. Does it have hot water? Does it
Yeah.
have a flush toilet?
Yeah.
Then I'm good.
And so just a very thin slice. My mom, Deborah, lived in a tent during the summers. They had a home that they lived
In the winter
in the
time.
winter time and school year, but very
But we
quickly
had
was
to have cheap housing. The University of Wisconsin, this is fairly famous at the university, put together a tenting colony after World War II, where they provided platforms, and you brought your own tent, or you could construct a tar paper shack. That was the high-end housing. We had a tent. Dad had a tent made that would fit the platform exactly.
it,
And then we slept, the four girls slept in pup tents, two per pup tent, until
eh,
we got older. And then they bought new tents where we could actually stand up in the middle. And we slept on cots in a pup tent in the rain. The famous picture of me standing with my sister, standing next to the tree that had fallen on our tent in a huge storm, you
yeah.
know.
I mean, it's a miracle that you're here. And so why were you living in a tent in Madison, Wisconsin?
So my dad could go to school and get his PhD, because
There.
we could not afford a house. We could not afford a place to live for 3 months out of the year and be paying for a house in another location. So 3 months out of the year, we packed up the car with the little trailer and dragged the tent to Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. And this is Camp Gallistel. It's on Lake Mendota. It's in its own way, it's very well known. It doesn't exist anymore, but there's a whole history about it that I have contributed to, you know. But it was a community with elected officials and everything, but it was for the summer. And somebody in the family had to be going to school to be allowed to live there.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
I think some people would use that experience to say, well, that's why I'm going to live in my 3,000 square foot house forever because I lived in this tent. But you have managed to like
My
trans.
thing is when I walk into a hotel room, does the water run?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
is there a flush toilet that works? You know,
Yeah. So it's a little,
my, yeah.
go
And so
ahead.
that's my thing is like, it's like, and you know, I fixed this place up. I mean, one of the workmen, when they came in about the flooding that was happening, you know, his comment was, your place is so clean. And he wasn't talking about dust on the floor. He was talking about lack of clutter.
Mm,
And, you know, I mean, just, and here for me, you and I started this journey at the same time when the minimalists came out with their first book.
yeah.
And they are, I still listen to their podcast every week. I've been going on, they have now something called FAMZ FAMS, and it's a Zoom call where you can actually go on and you can, they're on Zoom and you can, and they have like an hour and a half call on the first Friday of every month. And I learned so much from them about, you know, I mean, I hang on to things too. I don't have different feelings about things. My husband bought a muddler for drinks,
Hmm.
a wooden muddler so he could make old fashions at home, which he rarely did, but occasionally we would have guests and then he would make old fashions. I dragged that around, dragged it down to this new little apartment and have moved it from drawer to drawer to drawer. And for some reason, it's not emotional. I had nothing to do with that muddler. I tried using it for something, but it really wasn't that valuable a piece of equipment for me. And I finally gave it away to someone
Yeah.
who has no idea how to use it and has no use for it either. But she took it.
Yeah. So it's just being willing to release it and
Yeah,
not
it is.
being attached to where it's going.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, I do have a little, I want, I used to, in New York, I would take things into this Goodwill. That's where I
Hmm.
used to take things. What we know a lot about what happens now with stuff like that. It's like all that clothing that you see when you walk into Goodwill. Most of it, 90% of it goes into landfill.
Mm.
So, you know, I try to find, I do hope every society has a lot of people who need things, you know, and I know with the Filipino community, I know that if Malu takes it, if my friend takes it, it's going someplace. It's going to get worn. It's
Right.
needed. You know, it's not going to end up in some landfill. So,
How do you think that people who are in denial and not willing to prepare, like what are some of the consequences of that?
well, I think you're able to speak to that better than I am.
Well, I
But
mean, I have the adult child perspective, but because you are a planner and you are looking
oh,
ahead and
you
you're
know,
not in denial, I'm just curious, like,
okay,
what
my
your goal
trainer,
is.
yeah, my trainer, she and her husband have a beautiful home. They bought it not long after they got married, and have continued to improve it, make changes and this kind of thing. They have a full basement, and she has her little training area there. But they have a lot of his mother's things too.
Mm.
And there's an attack, and for a lot of people, it's the fact that they have space that causes them. If you have space, you're going to hang on to things that you would otherwise not hang on to. And the minimalists do talk about this on their show. And they have had, a whole, talking about empty spaces, and how to become okay. Well, sometimes we have things because it fills a void.
Mm.
Not because, it's like we had the apartment upstairs. I could have that condo. I had a lot, and I think a lot of people, they're filling spaces,
Right. What about with healthcare? Like, I feel like and if you don't want to talk about this now, we don't have to.
I'm
But
happy that, yeah,
okay, like with Papa
that's,
Ron, like he got a diagnosis and there just wasn't a lot of denial. I mean, there was some processing, there was kind of
oh,
like
yeah,
absorbing of the information, but then
yeah,
there was no procrastination. I mean,
no,
like
you
pretty
gotta, yeah, you gotta
quickly,
do it now.
you moved into action on several things.
Well, I'm telling, there were, because when we first got the diagnosis, pancreatic cancer, which is, and metastasized, that had metastasized. And that's very key to, you're not going to get rid of pancreatic cancer that easily, even if it hasn't metastasized. But if it has metastasized, they don't even do surgery. So you're very limited in the kind of treatment you can have. And he was pretty sick at that point. We didn't, and he got sicker, pretty quick after we got the diagnosis. But you know what, when we was brought up by the doctor, he had a scan. It wasn't the final word, but they said there's masses here and there's lesions there, and so we were going to try to get you in as quickly as possible for treatment. And we just were like, it took our breath away,
Yeah.
took our breath away, because he called us, like he went in for the scan, I don't know, like on a Friday, and on a Sunday the doctor called us, and he called us on the weekend.
Wow.
So yeah. And so you, we we're just like, well, we what are we going to do? Are we going to waste this time?
Right.
How, we are we going to, and Ron's like, I'm not running all over the place. We knew someone else that had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he was wealthy, and he went looking for cures, and I'm not saying you shouldn't look for the best treatment available. I'm not saying that whatsoever. And we heard about somebody else that she went down and got in a trial in the United States, and for 5 years, every 2 weeks, she was going to the States for this treatment.
Mm.
And Ron is like, we know what and she was just starting to slow down, but it's like, it wasn't going to get rid of it. This is a terminal diagnosis, and what you're hoping for is to feel as good as you can feel. But people saw him, and there was a lot of I think there's been a misdiagnosis. You look so good. You seem to be doing well, but always in our mind, this is terminal and this is the average lifespan. And so, we, like everybody else, were saying, Ron was like, I'm hoping to make it to this milestone. I'm hoping to make it to, and he had set it out 5 years. What's the harm in doing that? There is no harm in doing that. As long as you don't let go of your reality of what can we do today? If you wake up alive, and I said to him, if you wake up alive, that's a good day.
Yeah.
You wake up alive, there's something to do. And, trying to do everything we could. And the doctor kept saying, this is when we finally got in for the chemo treatment, there was really only one treatment that she felt had a chance of doing anything. And it was a miracle, but we were not in denial, this was, his quality of life was quite good. And the cancer had diminished in an important amount. It had diminished to a point where it was not affecting his quality of life. But that's what the doctor said. This is not curable. We're dealing with quality of life. If something that we do is taken away from your quality of life, we're going to stop doing it. So,
and with the treatment, he got to the 11 months.
He got to the 11 months.
Yeah.
Yes. But the other thing is to not fixate on that.
Right.
It's not to fixate on it. But the other thing for me, right at the beginning, went back to the meditations I have been doing for the last 10 years. And I'm not a fancy meditator. I don't have those fancy cushions and pads and all. I don't even get out of bed. I meditate in bed. Sometimes I meditate while I'm with the sound of the meditation while I'm doing the dishes. Whatever. There's walking meditations. But the one thing they talk about is you cannot live in the past and you cannot live in the future. Humans are the only animal that can time travel. And we tend to do it a lot at the expense of today. So my pods are ringing at me. I'm annoyed with them.
Oh. Well, and living today is that, I think that is what kind of grounds us into reality and like, what do I need today to not be in denial?
Yeah.
To take care of what needs to be taken care of.
And, to say, basically, my scenarios. Now, it hasn't played out exactly like I expected, and they never will. But the thing is, at least you're thinking about, if this happens, then what do I think I want to do next?
Yeah, it gives you some framework, at least to begin with.
Exactly. And it's like this, one of the things we knew is that we wanted to sell the condo. And we'd been trying for years to do it. But anyway, this whole thing about living in the present, that's what grounded me through this process. And I think by osmosis, it grounded Ron as well. Because we wake up, how do you feel? What can we do about how you feel? Let's move through our day. We had a routine. And, a big part of that was we had started this during the pandemic, we went out every day. We got in the car and even though we were supposed to be sheltering in place, we drove to a park. We sat in the car in a park.
Yeah.
We went to the drive-through to pick up a caffeinated beverage.
Hmm.
And then, drove around. We got out of the house every day. And that for him was massive when we started this process of what do we do with our days. And we had trips planned. I canceled a lot of tickets, but it's like we went ahead, we planned the trips, and a couple of them we got to make, and others we just had to cancel them.
Well,
Um,
I mean, which is so hard, but again, it's like you're in the reality of,
yes, of how do you feel? Do
yeah,
you feel like when we canceled a trip to California, and then I'm like, well, maybe we could, for New Year's Eve, maybe we could go, someplace relatively close by and celebrate New Year's Eve. Because my husband liked to stay up late. He liked to watch old movies, that kind of thing. And that didn't change. He
yeah,
was up. He was up till till 2, 3 in the morning, and he, and then ultimately we got him an extremely comfortable lazy boy. We had bought it, then we got the diagnosis, and then they started talking about time frames. And so we actually were able to cancel the one that we bought and to buy one that would not have been 100% our choice, but it was okay. The same chair with fabric. And, he, that was electric, and he
yeah.
could change the position very easily. And he ended up sleeping in that chair. So, it was important to get him up, to get him moving. And they kept saying, keep moving, keep moving. But, basically, there again, the doctors are trying to improve, and they're talking about quality of life in this moment,
Hmm.
still keeping us kind of grounded on what the prospects are. And each point, she would say, at one point, she said just before his birthday, the scan came back. And she said, there is another treatment we can try, but it only has a 10 to 20% success rate. And because we were already on a break from the
Hmm.
original. And so, and Ron was like, so how much time do I have? And she said, we're talking months here. We're not, there's no prospect for it going. And so, and there were tears. I carried a handkerchief with me at all times.
Yeah.
In fact, that time I had 2 handkerchiefs because she started to pass him the Kleenex box. And I said, oh, I can do better than that thin hospital Kleenex. Brought
Well,
out,
and
yeah.
I think that it goes back to, like, you were in the moment, you weren't in denial, you had ordered a really beautiful chair that you wanted, and then when you realized he needed something different, you shifted gears and got something that
Well,
was a better fit. And
the point is this, we realized he needed something immediate.
right,
Because if the worst case scenario was true, he'd be dead before the chair got there.
right, right.
And so we sent the bulldog daughter out, and she took care of it. We had
She got-
that chair that day.
Yeah, she's so
Yeah,
good. She's so
yeah.
good. I
She's
think
so good.
I
Yeah.
think one of the things that, because you weren't in denial and you did not procrastinate, one of the most beautiful things that came were the pictures that you took. T- Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. That was like when we got the diagnosis. I'm like, me, I already had my picture picked out, whatever. And we may retake it, but he had lost weight to a point where he was at his ideal weight. If you look at the charts, he was at ideal weight. He looked
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking there's going to be an obituary. I had already started writing it. I hadn't gotten very far, but I thought we need a good picture, and he looks good right now. So rather than trying to dredge up a picture from the past or whatever, or find something at a time when we're grieving at his death, I said, let's go get your picture taken. And we went into a studio and had a professional photographer take 2 pictures. One just of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he looks good. He's got the right shirt on. He's like, I had that clear dusting powder to get rid of the shine,
Mm-hmm.
And I put on a little makeup myself. And then I had a picture of the 2 of us taken. So we do a lot of selfies, but they're kind of goofy and, so I had a really nice picture of the 2 of us. But then I knew I had the picture that would go out to the world when he looked his very best.
Yeah.
And that is one of the smartest things that I did. And you can do it. You don't have to wait for a terminal diagnosis to do that. You want to plan your funeral and stuff? Fine. Get your obituary picture taken.
Yeah, that's huge. I
Yeah.
think this is something that is so important for people who are living with dementia, for families that are on that journey, because there is a point in time when, in someone's dementia journey, they cannot connect with and engage with people potentially. And
Yeah.
so there's more of a vacancy in their eyes.
Yes.
And I felt very brilliant that we took family pictures with Sherry, my mother-in-law, um, before that time period.
Yes.
So
Well,
we had,
you have always been very good at doing professional pictures,
yeah,
and even just good pictures, Yeah. No, I think that's so important. And, one of the things I know from your work experience too is that there's a place when people go back, kind of circling back about going into a place. If you wait until you don't know which end is up, you should have a nice picture taken at a time when you felt good about life that they can post on your door,
yeah, brilliant.
so that people, and I remember that was available where you were working, is a lot of people had pictures of themselves on their doors. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And for Aunt Dot, we wrote on the back of the pictures all the relationships, and then we stuck them on the wall so the staff could come in, look at the back of the picture, and say, oh, here's your nephew,
Yes.
this is your nephew Jim, what a handsome devil he is, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, I feel like this has been a really beneficial conversation. I feel like we've covered a lot of territory. Like, there's just a lot of advantage to not being in denial and not procrastinating. Um,
And living in today,
and living in today. And I think you and I just continue to have ongoing conversations. This episode will come out on Friday, which happens to be your birthday.
Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to you. And my post on social media will be about you and the other episodes that we've done. So that will also be fun. Um, but this is like an ongoing conversation. Like, this is not one and
Yes.
done. The denial and the
And you can change your
procrastination.
mind. People can change their minds
Yeah.
too. That's okay. It's
Right.
okay.
Right.
You know, it's
Like,
like, and the family should know that too. It's okay if, you know, people say, I was thinking about doing that, but I'm not going to do that now.
right. Right. I mean, we're always circling around health, safety, and well-being
Yeah.
for all parties involved.
I just one on a final note, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, Another friend of mine uh, went to France with a girlfriend for 2 weeks and to meet up with another friend. And these people have known each other. They went to definitely college together. I think college is where they met, university. But one of the my friend's friend, her daughter came to her and said, "Mom, what would," because she's 84, "what would give you joy right now?"
Mm.
Um, and she said, going with my friend to see my other friend and France. And so she paid for the whole thing.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So give that a
Joy.
give
Yeah.
that a thought. What would spark joy? Not just in arranging your furniture.
Right. Like it gets so heavy. Like what's bringing you joy and what would spark joy in your
Yeah, I
life?
mean, even old people can have joyful times.
Duh, for heaven's sakes, which is why we are just full of excitement and joy to celebrate your birthday in Sonoma.
I know.
Yes,
I'm looking forward to it.
me too. I love you, Ma.
I love you too, sweetheart.
More to come.